And if you're not
Yeah,
in that
and I
place
think
to be aware, you won't see it right away.
Right.
that's what I was just about to say. That for people, male and female, who are dating in the dating phase or whatever, it's
Hmm.
important to have somebody who's self-aware. I
Yeah,
think I said something about this last week
you
because
Mm-hmm.
probably did.
if you're with someone who isn't self-aware, then their challenges, their struggles, their flaws, they're going to be your fault, and that's abuse too.
It is.
Yeah,
Putting
Mm-hmm.
the blame and guilt on somebody else when you're supposed to be responsible for your own actions, that's that's gonna wear on you, male or
yeah,
female. It's gonna wear.
it is.
It's gonna wear on you. You
Yeah,
can't. You have to be aware and responsible. And it
Right.
and I feel like people who aren't self-aware and people who aren't responsible for their growth, for their elevation, for their actions, they will have a tendency to be toxic in relationships.
yeah,
Yeah.
And yeah,
And that's how number three.
yeah. You talk about.
Number three. Actually,
peace,
two was
jail,
actually
peace.
actually actually one and two was like that too, but three was the worst. But that's how number three was. And if we go 4 and 5, that would be the last two I was engaged to. They were similar. 5 for sure was. Oh my gosh, 5 was the worst.
Ugh.
But Shawnee, I'm glad Shawnee never met number 5. Shawnee would have read him Genesis to Revelation and back. But
I was ready to, but I was ready to, but he disappeared on me.
5, honestly, and I'll be honest, and I'll say that because of this, and I'll mention again in October when I really tell my story. But 5 literally put me in the mental hospital. So, and that was me doing exactly what Shawnee said, taking all of his problems and making them mine, all of them, and trying to hope I could love him enough to, number one, be good enough, and then help fix him. And I was a fixer emotionally since I was a kid, and that relationship taught me I'm done fixing. If you don't come to me whole, you need to find you some Jesus and come back to me. And a therapist. I can't do it. But for number three,
not a people do.
but
No.
for number 3, for sure, he was, his upbringing and my upbringing were very, very different. And I'm a very big proponent of telling people, because we come from a very close family. I come from function. If you connect yourself with dysfunction, that's very hard to be in a relationship, because that person doesn't know themselves.
No.
They don't usually have the capacity to love. They want it and they need it, but they don't have the capacity for it because they don't have an understanding.
They don't have that bedrock, that base to even know where that's coming from.
I was constantly, he was, and I'll be honest, and this is not even just coming from him, other people in his family said this to me. He was abused as a child. He was abused by his father, beaten a lot, yelled at, cussed at a lot, and his father would, do all kind of things to him. But that wasn't my responsibility.
And I think a lot of people get caught up in that. I'm a help you.
Yeah, so all of his emotionalness, and this was a terribly emotional man, let me tell you, all of his emotional moments, I somehow either triggered or I wasn't helping him enough. So when he would lose his temper, then, because now he had a horrible temper. A
lot of them do.
And I dealt with that a lot. He was, again, and then too, he was bipolar and unmedicated. He would never medicate himself.
No.
And I don't think everybody needs to, but he came to me supposed to have been on medication.
No.
And it was, I'm going to just trust God. I'm going to live by faith. Everything you need to do, you need to do those things in steps.
Didn't have
we
enough,
need to agree to this.
And you didn't, number 5 didn't have enough word in him to even be doing that. To be talking about, you need to be on some medication.
No, that was number 3. That was bipolar.
Oh, he showed it. You need to be on all the medication.
So for the whole 11 years, he had very severe mental health problems that he was on multiple prescriptions for, and he was never getting treatment or help.
No.
So I definitely don't take accountability for it, but even understand some of the erratic, some of the cheating was the mania that comes with
Mm.
bipolar for certain people, some of it, and that still isn't my fault because he still
No.
needed to have dealt with himself. But I understood even some of what I was dealing with, and when I would beg him, please get treatment, at least see a therapist, see a counselor. That's not fair. That's abuse because you're making me a part of your hurricane and your storm, and I didn't sign up for that at all. But now I
No.
have to clean up your messes everywhere that you go,
Mm-hmm.
because we're one. So
Yeah.
what you do reflects on me,
Yeah.
you know. And I'm saying that as that person. Then I now also don't believe that a woman should be cleaning up or fixing anything. If your husband makes a fool out of himself, it's one thing to cover somebody who makes a mistake or they
Oh
stumble.
yeah. Yeah.
But if you got someone just out here living a whole nother double life, well, you just
That's
gonna have
not
to
the
live it.
same thing. Yeah.
You're just gonna have to live it. You're gonna have to live it and take the consequences for your actions. I'm not covering. I will no longer cover sin. You're not providing for a home. You're not being a husband you're supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not doing that. You know, if you're not coming to church, you're missing church because you with somebody else, and I surely hope nobody asks me where you're at. Because
No.
I also won't stay in that anymore. And I make that clear in any relationship. You know my story, you know what I put up with.
Mm-hmm.
That was what those men benefited from. There'll never be another man to benefit from Leah staying with you while you get to do whatever it is you want to do. There won't be another breathing human being that gets to partake of that. Never. When I know you're wrong, I'm out.
Yeah.
Because I know my heart and I know my capacity, so I have to put my boundaries. I have to put my line in the sand up front, for myself. And it's still, and I said earlier, like, you never stop being a mom, right? So what affects me is gonna always affect my kids. I have 2 sons. I have 2 grown men now. Who,
yes.
they're not little boys. They absolutely could defend, and not that I would take anything from that firecracker that I call daughter, because she definitely,
yeah,
she's got her mom's back. But those are all things that I've had to walk through, and endure and grow from. You know, but I appreciate the people who could see that there was something different, something off, something wrong. Because I really do acknowledge the times people have saved my life and helped me, and just being watchful.
Yeah.
You know, but we got to get to the last 2 Ds. The first D for being an active bystander, again, was direct action. The second is distract. The third is delegate. If you're too embarrassed or shy to speak out, or you don't feel safe to do so, get somebody else to step in. So maybe it's not you, but you can get somebody else to do it. Any decent venue has a 0 tolerance policy on harassment. So even the staff, if it's happening at a restaurant, which is true, if it's happening somewhere in public, you can just let the people working there know this person is being hurt or harassed. And honey, they will not hold you up. Getting number one, get the person off their property and calling the police.
Yeah.
And the fourth D is delay. If the situation is too dangerous to challenge then and there, such as there's a threat of violence or you are outnumbered, just walk away, wait for the situation to pass, then ask the victim later if they're okay, or report it when it's safe to do so. It's never too late to act. So I want to ask you all, you both, what are some of the reasons that we as a people don't intervene when we see someone being harassed or disrespecting another person?
I think I'm sorry, my hair done went through 3 different styles. I thought it was natural today. My hair, I want to be Optimus Prime today.
But you look cute.
And your hair do more than my hair don't even stay like that. I'm doing that to my hair. My hair gonna droop. My hair don't even stay up.
All types of stuff. I had a bang when we first started. Anyway, I think that one is fear, because if somebody's violent, they're just violent, and you might catch their violence as well.
Right.
I think it's a lot of fear, a lot of self-preservation, but I think that sometimes it might happen so much in our communities that we're almost numb to it.
And that's
It's
what I think
almost
it is.
we're almost numb to it, and that's just how. And because we're numb to it, but a certain part of us knows that we're not supposed to be numb to it. The way we dismiss it is, like I said before, what did she do to him? What did she do to him? Or what did he do to her? Or stuff like that. If he like it, I love it. If she like it, I love it. Things like that. Just to
Ugh,
justify
I
you
cannot stand that thing.
doing, just to justify you not helping where you could.
Right.
My is I think that's we're numb and we want to protect ourselves.
Yeah, I think so
Yeah.
too.
Hmm.
I think that when you know it's a history of abuse, I think it's that you believe that that person hasn't left because they don't want to leave, or like I've heard like growing up, she's grown, she know how to talk. That's not always the case,
No.
And I'm telling you as someone who's been with someone who was like, I dare you to say something. You
They
don't
will
know how much
Yeah.
a woman has been told before she leave her house, you better not. And one of the reasons why I started becoming vocal about my story and my life was because it was hurting me how many women I knew were sitting inside of churches being abused. And a church is supposed to be the safest place in the world, but it is not that anymore. And that was bothering me. And I felt accountable for that. So if my story could help another woman speak up for herself, then I would follow my own sword and expose myself. I had no problem with that. So that's definitely come with its own attacks, trust me. But I think I hear that so much, and I hear it unfortunately amongst believers and Christians and ministers and preachers so much that's breaking my heart. That truthfully is breaking my heart. Because how does anybody get help? How does everybody get help? And then I hear people say, just on the other side of that, well, she doesn't look like it. Everyone is not going to come to you broken and battered and bruised. Everyone's not going to come to you with black eyes or all that stuff. For some people, they can hide it very well. I can tell you in my second marriage where I was physically abused, he intentionally didn't touch me anywhere that was visible. And he told me that. He was never touching my face, my arms, anywhere that someone could ask me what had happened at home. So anywhere that he hit me could be concealed by clothes.
Mm-hmm.
And that was calculated and on purpose. And when a person tells you that to your face, you understand how cruel, cold, and calculating of a monster you're dealing with. They don't have a problem telling you this is their plan and their tactic.
Yeah.
And that's even more saying,
if you're saying that you plan to do it, like this is not, I just got out of control. That's your plan. You're going to do it, and you're going to do it again.
Mm-hmm. Right. And then that puts you in a mind state of, I don't know what's going to happen. I'm not safe. And that can be why a lot of women stay, because women get the most abuse, and sometimes even get toe tagged or unalive when they're trying to leave.
Yeah.
That's when they're the most unsafe. And then you also don't know, they could be threatening to toe tag them if they leave, and they can also threaten to hurt their children if they leave, and they can also threaten to take their children from them.
Yeah.
And I've seen that before.
Me too.
If you taking the kids and you won't see them again, and it's not from women. That I know women do that, but from my experience, that I didn't hear that from women. I heard that from three stories about men doing it that I knew.
Y'all seen the movie For Color Girls, right?
Just once, and I tried to erase it out of my mind.
Because you know that scene is in there.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't even want to talk about it. I was like, that's a good movie, but I'll never see that again.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The book is even deeper. But anyway, I don't even want to get into that. But what do you do? And I'm just asking this. What do you do? You know, it's one thing when you look and you say that person's partner, their spouse, the person they're dating, he gives off a vibe. Because a lot of times you can feel a vibe. That person, he doesn't talk or she doesn't talk around the family or she's. But what do you do when a person is like a what's the guy's Eddie Haskell, when he's so perfect and he speaks so well and he's so kind to all the family. He drive her mama to the grocery store and you know all this stuff. So when she finally does tell you this is happening, no one believes her. And that happens too.
I think that you have to, and that's on purpose because they have to act that way to hide the evilness that's stirring on the inside. But there are a lot of people who are abusers are charismatic, cult, you know, that's how they get you.
Husband number 2 was like that. And a lot of people, when I told them that I was the level of abuse, they didn't believe me.
And you have to be prepared to understand that people aren't going to believe you. They're going to start a smear campaign on you. The person who's abusing you is going to start a smear campaign on you that can be lies and can be some of the truth that they tweet, or it could be something that you told them, you know, because you thought you could trust them, and then they're spreading everything, you know. So they're going to try to make you look as bad as you. They can try to make you look while they try to make themselves look as good as they can. And it's going to be people who are going to believe them, and you just have to accept it. You can't work at trying to prove that this person is lying to everybody. You just got to accept that he's going to lie or she's going to lie, and it's going to be people who are going to believe them, and that's just going to show you who you need to cut out of your life moving forward.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
I remember when I came off of my honeymoon with him. So we had only been married like 2-3 days. And he turned on me and we got into this horrible fight where I literally was in my kids' room and he was kicking the door in to get to me. And I called my best friend, and this was like 4:00 in the morning. Because he came off our honeymoon and went to a club. And he came home drunk. And I called my best friend, and I was hysterical. And I was calling her, and I was telling her to come to the house and come get me. She was like, "You just got married. What in the world is going on? This doesn't make sense to me." And she said, "Put him on the phone. Let me talk to him," because she could hear him in the background. So was he on the phone? He totally changed, and he was, "Well, hi, how you doing?" And I remember looking at him like, "You just turned this on and off." Like
you
that.
Should call,
and
see, you should call me because I'd have been like, yeah,
and he was just like, "Well, I don't know what's wrong." Because she was like, "Why is Leah telling me, you know, this and that is happening?" He said, "I don't know what's wrong with her." He said, "I think that she's just really tired. We had a long day today. You know, he's like, I'm concerned about her. I'm going to just go ahead and put her to bed." And I remember that night when I got back on the phone with her and she said, "Well, Leah, what do you want me to do?" And I said, "Never mind."
Never mind.
But I just said never mind, because I remember looking at him and thinking, I've totally married a monster, and this person absolutely probably could kill me inside this marriage. And I honestly was afraid the whole year that he probably was, but I just didn't want to drag anybody else into, because at that point I felt I was responsible for it. I married him. This was my mess. I had to figure it out. And
I can say there's nothing he could have said to me. Like, first of all, I would never ask to get on the phone. And I don't. If you call me, why don't I need to talk to him? If you call me in that state, I don't need to talk to him. So we are not having a conversation. You do not exist.
I think she wanted to try to hear in his voice, and I'm not saying she was wrong. I think she wanted to hear in his voice, but he turned it off, and I didn't think he was capable of that.
I'm like, I'm not, you can believe it, but I'm like, I just know if I don't need to, if my only point is going to be from the person who contacted me, especially somebody I know. Outside of that, if that person is full of garbage and they lying, then okay, well, I was lied to. But I never want to be a person that was like, well, I wanted to get the other side. I wanted to know. I don't need that other side right now. We can discuss the other side after everybody is separate in other locations and safe. But that whole I don't need the other side right now. I don't. I never heard his other side. I never cared to. He didn't have a side. So like when I called the police on him, he did not have a side. When he showed up at my house, he did not have a side. You do not have a side. I don't want to hear nothing from you. I think at some point, if you're the if you're trying to help a person, if you're the ally, you don't need to be you can't be a mediator and help the person you're trying to help. You can't be both. Right. So either you're helping the person out of a situation, or you're going to be a mediator. But you can't be both. And I'm not. If somebody I know contacted me, I'm not mediating. What do you need me to do to get you out? I don't need to. We don't need to sit here and have a sit down and a kumbaya moment. That's how from my point of view, that's how I come at it. If anybody I know were to contact me, family, friend, whatever. My only thing I'm going to ask is, what do you need me to do?
Right.
Period. Like I don't, when you start getting to that point of view of, well, let me talk to them and let us calm the situation down. No, because then you end up in situations where he was all the way crazy and he can convince people. So how did that help you?
Right.
He wasn't less violent. He wasn't less abusive. He just made it look like he was crazy. Now what? So I think you really just kind of have to figure out what place you're coming from when you're trying to help a person. Especially if you're trying to help a person out of a situation. And my position is always going to be, what do you need, you that contact me need to do to get you out? Period.
Right. Right. And I think that, again, because that's my absolute best friend. I agree with Angelique. I wish it had been handled more like that, because he wasn't a tall man, but he was a big man. Mm-hmm. He absolutely could have hurt me. Like, mm-hmm. He could have done a lot of damage. So what if I didn't make it past that night?
Yeah.
Because he did other stuff like choke me, other things. Mm-hmm. I mean, he did all kind of stuff all the time. Plus throw things at me, mm-hmm. Which that escalated throughout the marriage. But I honestly didn't have the comfort that I was going to make it through that weekend. Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah, and that's the thing. That's why, like we said when you were talking about it earlier, but when you called me and I'm coming to your apartment, I'm hearing all this yelling. Well, no, I don't need to hear both sides at that point. I hear violence in my sister's apartment, so I'm calling the police. I don't need to go and separate people and y'all just sit down and figure out what happened. No, I hear violence in a place I should not be hearing violence. So my next step was, I'm going to be outside and I'm calling the police. Right. Period. You show up at my house. My sister came to our house to get away from you. I do not need to have y'all sit down and have a conversation. You need to get off my property. Because obviously she wanted to get away from me. So I'm letting her get away from me. Goodbye.
Right. and that night I was running for my life.
And so if you don't leave, I'm calling the police, and I'm not playing with you.
And that particular night, I was running for my life. That particular night, he actually verbally threatened to kill me and was trying to physically.
Mhm.
I don't know how I got away from him because he's much, much stronger than me. But I did, and I was literally running with 3 kids, barefoot.
Yeah. You know, that's what I'm like, and that's the thing is like my point of view was always she wanted to get away. I don't care. I don't care what you have to say. Because he tried to explain and I was like, I don't stop talking, get off my property. I don't need to hear anything you're saying, nor do I want to. If you do not leave, I'm going to leave. I just want to talk to her. She does not want to talk to you, and I don't want you at my house.
And I tried to go back out and talk to him, and you wouldn't let me.
No.
Because he could have probably got me back home.
Because my thing is, if you ran across the street barefoot, my thing is now you are no longer in the position to be making decisions to talk to him. You obviously are not. You did this to get away. I'm not gonna then just be like, here, go talk to him now. No, like no. So if you
took your first pot of tea, darling.
Yeah, if you had just pushed for it, then no, I couldn't have stopped you. But I'm not gonna I'm gonna do everything in my power to be like, no. Because you obviously wanted to get away. Because even when I went to the door with the phone in my hand. So he knew, if you do not leave, because here I can't control what you do at your house. You are now on my property now. You have no say over here. So if you do not leave, I'm calling the police. And not only, especially living where we used to live, not only were the police up the street, the police know my family.
Right.
So it's not gonna take long. So we're not having a conversation. We're not having a sit down. You need to leave. Period. Because and that's the thing. He tried that. He tried to. She's just no. I don't want to hear your reasoning for why you think my sister was whatever. I don't care. No. She ran away from you. And this was after I had already called the police on you once.
Right.
So like you can't snow me. So it's just like, I'm a firm believer in it, especially if it's somebody you know. If you know this person, I don't need you to explain anything to me. You wanted to get out. Okay, well, you out. I'm gonna help you stay out. We don't need to have any other conversation. But a lot of people look at it as, well, let me hear, that other side stuff, and it's just, you gotta just be really careful with that, because you could be dealing with a person, male, female, or other, like number 2, who can manipulate and so I don't think a friend or a family member should also be in a position of a mediator.
No.
That's because now you're almost taking that protection from the person that you're friends or family with. So now, if they need, can they contact you now? Are you going to be that person they can go to? Not if you already proven, well, then I'll talk to this other person too, because that could be dangerous.
Yeah.
Because what if they secretly contacted you, and now you talk to the other person, telling them they contacted you? Now it's just like it's so many things you have to be aware of. Because if somebody contacted me, I'm not telling nobody. So that's just kind of where I am on it. My stand.
That's the best place to be, and I appreciate you for that. So, I just have a few questions. These are a few real life bystander scenarios that I wanted to pose, just to see how we would, and just to get our listeners thinking and get us thinking before we end the show today. It's been a very good show. Some of these we've already answered as we've been talking.
Yeah.
So your friend tells you that he or she thinks they have been raped, what would you do?
If they told me they thought they were,
Mm-hmm.
if they weren't sure,
Mm-hmm.
depending on how long ago it was, I definitely would try to talk them into getting a test, rape kit, kit. um,
We just throwing this episode to the wind at this
yeah,
point.
a kit. Um, definitely try to talk them into reporting it if they felt comfortable. But a lot of times, you really just have to, when it comes to something that serious, you kind of have to let them
lead.
let them lead, because you can't force them. You kind of just have to give them the thing and let them know you're going to support them.
Support.
Whatever. You really just have to be support in that situation.
I think it depends on how brutal. I mean, I guess you think you've been raped, you don't shoot, and a lot of times that's connected to either a date rape, drug, or alcohol has been involved.
Something that's not immediately noticeable.
But I had someone extremely close to me call me and tell me that, like very, very close to me, and I was adamant that she needed to go to the hospital immediately, go to the ER, get a rape kit, and for me, it was at least go get the rape kit. Now, in the state that she lives in, she wouldn't have had to report it, because in the state she's in, her going to get that rape kit is enough. Police at the hospital.
Yeah, that's like going to the hospital with a gunshot wound. They're going to They're going to report it. You don't have to say anything.
Because the person, and what made it bad was the person that she thought did it had been a childhood friend of hers, and she said, I never would have suspected that he would have done this. But she said the only thing I knew was that we were drinking. I blacked out and I woke up and I had no clothes on, and I feel like I've had sex with somebody, and I know I didn't give consent. She asked him, and he swears she gave consent.
Well, a lot of people need to be aware of consent. No,
right?
And that's the thing, because a lot of male, female, and other need to be aware.
But I mean, he must have asked her when she was drunk already.
He waited till she got drunk. Yeah.
But I'm saying, even if you've been drinking and you remember, you still can't give consent, because even if you don't, even if it is, I'll put it this way, even if it is legitimately consent, even if you're with a person that you're dating or a person you know, person you have an agreement with to do fandango, if either party is under the influence, you cannot legally give consent. So obviously, if you just go with the flow, it's like, that was what it was. But if she can't even remember, then you did not give consent.
No, and that's what I told her.
Even if y'all had done something before, if you don't remember it that night, you didn't give consent, and that's not. Maybe I said yes. If you didn't, your yes did not mean anything.
It's got to be clear, defined consent.
Yeah. Once you lose memory of it, it was you didn't. That's why a lot of people say you shouldn't even be doing anything if you're if those, because you can't too many variables. Too many variables. But her, no, she didn't give consent.
No, and so for me, it was, you need to get you, and because my thing is, if you didn't get consent, you also don't remember if you were protected and all the other things that could come with that. That was my biggest reason for pushing her.
You don't know what happened. You don't know what happened.
And you believing, here's the thing, and this is the honest truth, and this is just what life teaches you as you grow, right? So even you can say, well, this is my childhood friend, I've known this person for a long time, this is the person I've been dating for years. I feel like if you don't know, then you need to know. You don't know every place this person has been. You don't know what all this person has not told you.
Yeah. If you don't know, it's a no. If you do not know, it's a no. Like, it's especially unprotected, no. If you don't know, if it's, well, maybe, no, we're not doing maybes. It's a no. But yeah, I know the person you're talking about, and no, she don't even remember.
Yeah.
So that's already you couldn't have, you don't even remember what happened. And even something like just just for him to even be okay with that, like you needed to do something that bad. You couldn't wait
Right.
till she sobered up.
She obviously wasn't gonna get it if she was sober.
Right.
Mm-mm.
That's the evil part of it. He knew that.
Yep.
So the
Yep.
next question, the next real life bystander scenario is, and I've been in this scenario before too. Your male friend tells you that he had an unwanted sexual experience when he was younger with someone he looked up to. He questions if it was a sexual assault because he was sexually aroused during the interaction. How do you respond?
It was. It was.
It was. And
It
a lot of
was.
people don't know that your body can still react and respond sexually
Mhm.
during a violent act. That
Yeah.
doesn't mean that you wanted it. And a lot of times
Yeah.
a perpetrator will play with your mind and tell you that too. Well, you responded or you no.
It happens to both, but a lot of times that's what happens with males
Men, yeah.
because of their body's natural reaction. They think,
Mhm.
well, because that happened, I must have wanted it, and because a lot of that, no, you just were stimulated. That's not the same thing.
Right.
So if I had a male friend, family member, whatever, and told me that, I'd be like, no. If you didn't want it, you didn't want it. I don't care what your body did. Like that's you didn't want it. You were taken advantage of. But a lot of times, they don't understand that difference,
So
which
here's a
is
tricky
sad.
one. You're at a party or out drinking. Someone nearby has had a lot to drink and is being harassed or manipulated by someone you think may do something physically harmful to them. How do you handle that?
Ooh,
Ask the question again.
it's just something.
You're at a party or drinking, and someone nearby has also had a lot to drink
Mm-hmm.
and is being harassed, or not also had a lot to drink, but someone has had a lot to drink. And there you see them being harassed or manipulated by someone that you think may do something physically harmful to them, whether that's rape them or hurt them, hit them,
Anything.
harm them. How do you handle that? What do you do? So it's not
Let me
saying
tell
necessarily
you
that you
what I
know
do.
the person, but you see it's enough that it's alarming you.
Try to get that person out of
I
that
cannot
situation.
count.
You
I
cannot
cannot
what?
count. I can't count how many times I called the police on other people. I can't even count. And that's what I say when you have to be. You always have to protect yourself first. Um, when you're dealing with situations like that. But I called the police so many times. It was one time I heard somebody screaming. This is before I was even an adult when we still lived in Muskegon. But I heard a woman screaming. I'm like, no, I kept hearing her screaming, so I called the police. And the police told me that they had got another call about that area. And so I told her where I thought the screaming was coming from. I looked at the news the next day. The newspaper the next day, and they said somebody was sexually assaulted in that area.
Wow.
And so and then after that, I promise I cannot count how many times I called the police. Now I know they don't come exactly when we want them to, but you have to protect yourself.
You have to do something.
And yeah, you gotta do something. I'm a woman, so I'm not just gonna walk up to a man and be like, "Hey, stop that,"
Yeah, no.
I'm not trying to.
Mhm.
I got my own family. I gotta protect myself, but I'm gonna do something, and that's the safest thing I think that I can do. And I wish I knew other things. I wish I could do other things, but I can't. Like I
Yeah.
said, I can't count. I can't count how many times I called the police when I heard somebody yelling and screaming. And it was another time I called the police when I heard yelling and screaming. And come to find out, it was because this girl broke up with her boyfriend. He came back and set her house on fire with her and her child.
Gosh.
Oh my goodness. Mm-mm. Now that's the extremes. Like that's
Right.
the extremes. But I can say if you're dealing with
And
something,
that's another reason why women stay.
yeah,
Yeah, they're afraid of that. They know that extremism inside that man.
I will say if you're in a situation where you're like at like say like a club,
Mm-hmm.
if you're because that almost sounds like a question more in that vein,
It is.
definitely. If you're in a club, a good way to do stuff like that is because in that type of situation, 9 times out of 10, especially if you're dealing with a guy doing something with a female, they're not going to do something publicly.
Mm-hmm.
So, what a good thing to do is go ask the girl for a lighter. Go ask, go because if first of all, nine out of 10, almost everybody in the club is drunk. So you going to talk to a girl, she's going to probably talk to you because she's drunk too. so she's so get talk to her like you know her.
Mm-hmm.
And that's because guys that are doing that do not want attention. They do
Right. That's
not
true.
want attention. So if they even think somebody will remember them being there, they will back off. Especially if you're not dealing with a relationship. If you're dealing with a dude that's trying to just snatch up women to do stuff, they don't want attention. So just go, especially because well, most people I know we all in groups anyway. So go over there, and be like, hey girl, hey, you got a lighter? Hey, you would like talk, get her away from him if you can. If you're
Mm-hmm.
in
That's a
that
good
type of
idea.
situation, because it's public. You're not in a place where you have to kind of be necessarily worried about a private dark thing because it's not that type of situation. It's a bunch of people around anyways. 9 out of 10. Because I've done that. I've talked to people in clubs and stuff like we've known each other forever. People don't know who knows who.
Right. That's true.
He don't know if he don't know if you know her.
Mm-hmm.
you know. So especially and honestly, if I saw a girl or a woman extremely drunk and I wasn't sure, I would rather be wrong than
Exactly.
not did anything. Like I would rather somebody, be like, oh no, they really are together than
Mm-hmm.
me sitting here and saw an extremely drunk woman just go with a strange dude and I didn't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
This scenario isn't on here, but um, what would you do if you saw someone being abused in a church setting? Because I think that's the place that people don't think it happens, but I've witnessed a
Oh
very close
yeah,
friend,
it
a
happens.
very close friend of mine. I've
Mm,
seen. I don't. I'm trying to be careful because she could listen, but
can't tell the
um,
tulips.
at this point, I don't think there's nobody who knows her that don't know her story. But I know I've seen, I want to say at least 4 to 5 different occasions I've witnessed her husband put his hands on her, and all of them were on church property. And that's not counting the times I've heard him cuss her out, call her out her name, drag her places, like grab her by the arm and dragging her out of the building. That's violent. Those type of things. If you can do that in front of people, that means you'll do something far worse when you're not around people. And I think people need to remember that. If you
Yeah.
see someone being horrible in public, they're usually 10 times worse in private. So if a man can call a woman out of her name or raise his voice where the whole room can hear it in front of people, he does not care. So
What does that tell you though about the mindset of people in church?
Thank you. Because every time I've witnessed this woman, I was not the only person who was aware. But they, for whatever reason, had more respect for her husband than her life. And she had kids.
For no reason.
And he didn't warrant that respect at all.
Right. They know they can get away with it because even though in the Bible it says if a man cheats on you, he's not even married to you anymore. In the Bible it says that it says that you don't if your husband is supposed to protect. It don't say that the way I'm saying it, but
I know.
I'm putting it all together. Your husband's supposed to protect you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, So if he's putting his hands on you, you're not married anymore. You don't have to stay. But they will try to talk in a church. They will try to talk you into staying and forgiving him. They won't tell you that if he puts his hands on you, if she puts her hands on you, if she or he feels that comfortable, you could lose your ability to breathe.
Thank you.
If they feel okay with doing that, they're going to keep loving the power so much. They're going to want even more power and more power until I've even heard people talk about their husbands or their wives or the person who they let physically abuse them for too long say, you're so messed up, you should give me the opportunity to send you to heaven or hell.
Ooh.
Yeah, I've heard that before.
That's
yeah. But when it happens at church, I think that because it's at church and it's, we should be loving everybody. He doesn't,
right.
But he's not loving her. So why should I give him that? He's disrespecting her and to the utmost. He's not being the husband that God called him to be on any level. So why should I be giving him what he's not giving her, or any of us here? Mm-hmm. And he's not respecting God. He's doing this on supposed to be the most sacred property that there is. And that to me was my biggest thing.
That's not loving your wife like Christ loves the church. That's not doing that.
But I find that a lot of people in ministry, a lot of pastors who are aware of that type of abuse, it's the love everyone, and it's always let's get both sides, let's pray through it, can you work through it, and what if she doesn't make it back?
And it's been a lot
then how do you feel about that? Now you've gone from needing to counsel them to you're doing somebody's funeral. You're accountable for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you are right.
He probably is gonna get mad. He probably is gonna tell you that you're tearing his home apart. He probably is gonna leave the church. Okay, she'll be alive.
I think in a lot of ways, I'd say in some ways, it's almost harder when it's in church because so many women think it's okay.
And they've been taught, I gotta submit.
And it's so much more
work
to get them out of it. And I think that's when you really need to lean on being there for that woman so she knows that door is open. Or that man. But that door is open. When they are ready, they know at least one person they can call.
Right.
And I think a lot of people
went through that season too of I need to submit, I need to cover my home. I thank God that I have a mother who was just like, I didn't raise you to be crazy though, and a father. You know, and I tell people, people ask me all the time, coming from your family, that doesn't make sense. Well, number one, I'm trying to make sense of abuse. Abuse doesn't make sense. But the other thing was, and you two know this better than anybody, I didn't tell anybody that I was being abused, not in either marriage at all, or the last relationship I was in. I didn't tell anybody. I didn't believe in uncovering my home or exposing anything. It was, what can I get myself through? Had I told Dwayne, Elijah, especially somebody put their hands on me, or this dude can't keep his zipper up and he's doing all these other things, I would have been divorced.
Yeah.
Period. If not a widow.
I was about to say, well, a widow.
Yeah.
I need some feet dangling, okay? I need to have some feet dangling. That's all I have to say.
But I honestly think so many people don't understand, like, you can't make somebody do it. You can't make that person leave. And you forcing it is going to really make it harder for that person. So really it's just, if you see that person is not ready, then just be there for that person. So when they are ready, they know, okay, there's nobody else I can call this person.
Because again, you don't understand the degree to this person has probably been threatened. They have to push past that to get their freedom. They have to believe this person is not as strong. He doesn't have the strength to take my life or my freedom or my children or my income or my name. For me, I never worried about losing my kids, but for me, it was the humiliation, the public humiliation, and when someone knows and listen. Your abusers always group you. They also know what your triggers are or what's going to keep you there. So for me, it was I didn't need the public in my business. I didn't, and once I've been married more than once, I hate the thought of being divorced again. Yes. So she's not going to leave. So, or in any infraction upon me, it was, well, I'll make that public. So the things that are being told to you, that you're being threatened with, held over your head, will keep you there too. You have to be strong enough to be able to say, or be able to just say, you know what? I'll take the L. I gotta get out. And however people see me, there's people to this day that know my story inside and out and still think I'm wrong for leaving. That still think I should have stayed. I should have stood by that man of God, which I think is a comedy. But if that's your belief, that's your belief. Would you really tell your sister or your mother that?
No, I wouldn't.
Yeah, some of them would though.
Some of them would.
Some of them would. And with confidence and authority. And that's what leads me to believe that for church people, because misogyny is all language and that it's hard for people to see women as humans. Right. It's like we are the things that are supposed to support our husband. We're the things that's supposed to take this and take that. Like they almost make we're supposed to take our low. It could be killing us physically or killing us with STDs. They could be killing us by, you don't know who your husband or wife is. Your husband or partner, somebody that could kill you. I mean, her harm you.
Right.
Just to get you in the way. You know, it has in one way or another, definitely disrespecting you, definitely not even doing what God says they need to be doing. But you're saying, even though God says, it's written in the Bible, God says you can leave if this and this happens, we're telling you you need to stay because you obviously we don't see you as a human who deserves respect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What makes you feel like you can override God?
Mm-hmm.
If they cheat on you after you've taken your vows, if they put their hands on you after they taken vows, that's it, you know. And then we God says you can leave, but we prefer. What are you getting in the face?
Okay.
We would prefer. Who are y'all? Leave me alone.
I would prefer not to be getting hit. I would prefer not to be getting cheated on. We talking preferences.
Dangerous. Both of those scenarios, physical violence and also getting cheated on is dangerous.
Yeah. Yeah.
Both of those scenarios are very dangerous.
Yeah, and it's dangerous on this side too, and we don't talk about this because if your husband is laid up with another woman, especially someone he sees all the time, he's destroying you to this woman because he's got to convince this woman.
Yeah.
Especially if she knows he's married, he's got to convince this woman that she can have him and he's okay to leave his household. So we don't talk about the time when these men pump these other women up, where the other woman comes and confronts you, and she doesn't have a problem being violent towards you, or smearing you, or humiliating you, or taking your life, or him convincing her to do it for him.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And also, it's physically dangerous because outside of the other stuff, What is he or she bringing home to your bed
Okay, which I'm pretty
after
sure,
they done slept with whoever they want to sleep with?
and that happens a lot too.
What travelers are they bringing
Sometimes
back to
that's the
you?
way a woman knows her husband, or husband knows his wife has been cheating because they contract something.
Yeah,
Sometimes you contract something you
Something
can't get rid of.
that's right. You can't get rid of, and you didn't have nothing to do with it.
yeah,
And I think that is so cruel.
it is.
Because if you're going to be out on the street, the least you can do,
The
the minimal you can do, is protect yourself.
And I think that shows that they don't care. They just don't care.
You can create a whole nother life with somebody, a whole nother life, and I'm talking about babies.
My ex-husband got at least 3 different women pregnant while I was married to him.
Mm-hmm. There's so many things that go into that. That's not just the obvious.
And I remember
your feelings are hurt.
Did you not even did you forget, number one, how babies were made, and then number two, did you not consider the 2 innocent people here, just me and that child? We didn't ask for this. We will be the collateral damage from you and this other woman.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
I remember, and since we're talking about the church and abuse, I remember when somebody who was respected in their city passed away. It was a male, and he had a lot of babies on his wife. He was a known cheater, and she took it. And everybody at his funeral was saying how much of a good woman she was because she took it. So what?
If that makes a good woman, I'd rather not be.
Right.
Then that makes me a good woman. That's what, if they don't have the other things in their life, other people, adults in their life to counteract it was other people saying how much of a good woman she was because she took it and stayed. What does that do to? It tells her she's a good woman if she just takes it, but it's really putting her in danger.
Yeah. Mhm. I'm like that's, and I see a lot of people think that she a good woman because she put up with being abused. That's what you gonna call a good woman? I don't feel that's fair.
It was other. I'm not saying that she wasn't a good woman because it wasn't because of those things.
No, but I'm saying when people say that and you know that she's been dealing with that, that's not what made her a good woman.
Mm-hmm.
That's not even fair. That's not fair. That's not even fair to her to just be like, oh, she was treated like garbage, but oh, she stayed. Really? Like that's ooh, just make you. I'm like, no, that'll. I'm not saying that'll make me think she's a good woman, but that make me feel bad for her. That'll make me say she's a good woman.
Right. and what does that tell you about the mindset of people who said that?
Really?
It makes you feel like they think we're supposed to put this is what we're supposed to put up with. We're supposed to take that. Women are created just to take pain.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's just yeah. Especially with a lot of stuff that's been going on. Yeah. That's really the mindset of the world as a whole. Is like the way they think about women and women's bodies is like not even human.
That's why I was saying. I feel like they think that we're the things that's supposed to make sure things are handled no matter how
what it does to us.
No, that's why I say we're the things that's supposed to do this. We're the things that's supposed to do that. Because we're supposed to take and accept things that you would never.
No. No.
Would never.
No.
So that makes me think that you think we're not on the same level, and I'm a thing and you're a person.
Yep. Yep. Exactly. Exactly. Because you can't expect women to deal with all this stuff, but also they're supposed to be somehow independent, but not. Still like it's the stuff like everything that a woman is like. What I don't even. Are we supposed to be robots? Are we supposed to be? But shit, like I don't know what because we can't supposed to be human.
No, definitely not. Because we're not
You
supposed
know,
to feel the same things that you do. Is Renee
no.
back?
Yes.
Oh, okay. All right.
That was all the questions. Actually, it was a ton of questions, but we really answered them throughout the show.
Yeah.
Oh, so I think that that's where I'm going to stop for tonight. I think, unless we have anybody else on the line.
At the earlier we had Tori Williams said, "Hey, ladies." That's all we had. We had views, but no, that's the person that commented after that.
All right. Hey, my Tori. That's one of my good friends. So I'm good for tonight. I think that tonight has been informative. Tonight, I hope that you remember, again, the 4 Ds of being an active bystander, which is direct action, distract, delegate, and delay. And again, remember, we want to create active bystanders and not passive bystanders, which means passive means to let it go. This doesn't have anything to do with me. It's somebody else's problem. I was thinking about before the show started too. I wish we could get the licensing for this song, but we haven't made that much money yet. But Stevie Wonder had a song out years ago. Was it Stevie Wonder? No, it was Babyface. I don't know. Was Stevie Wonder or Babyface? I forgot whose CD it was on. Because it's a duet, and I forget whose album it was on. But it's How Long?
Oh, Tooth Babyface. That was Babyface. That was Babyface.
I thought it was Babyface. How long?
It's not right, so wrong.
Yeah. But it was about that, knowing that people are in the video. There's this woman which is in the song, being abused, and we kind of stand by and watch it. And I think there's abuse with a child in it too. And I was thinking about it, and I listened to it before the show started, and I just thought that song is so poignant for this topic, because we often turn our eyes and our ears and just I don't want to be in the middle. I don't want to be involved. I don't want. And the simplest thing that you can do is what Chantalie said. It's so easy to dial 3 numbers, just 911.
Yep.
Yeah.
Let them handle it. Let them figure it out. If you feel like you can't do anything else, because I've never been in that predicament until I moved where I currently live. And in this particular housing complex, it's just been times where I have felt like I've heard things that were unsettling. I've heard children scream, where I know that a child is being beaten. I couldn't live with myself and not call. And I remember when I called and I saw the child, I think the next day or the day after that, the child was like 3 years old. And the walls here are paper thin. They're very, very thin.
Yes.
Trust me, it's very uncomfortable sometimes. But he was being beaten because he didn't say his grace over his food. And he was drug upstairs and beaten. Yeah. But I thought, now he may have issues with God and anything else.
That's what I was thinking.
But I called that time. But I've called just since I've been out here, because You live in different areas. I've seen women being abused, physically abused, just out in the daylight. You just punch a woman just being punched and being hit, being dragged, being choked. I've seen the things that I just were unsettling to me, and so I prefer to be an active bystander. I could easily say, well, that's their relationship. I could deal like what Chantilly said, well, I can do the Chris Brown and Rihanna thing. Well, what did she do to make him mad? That's not my business at all.
Last time I checked,
Maybe she
any
will
assault
live
is
through
bad.
it. Well, she could have gotten him mad, but she will live through it and think about it, and versus be dead. So she definitely didn't deserve his reaction, and so I just rather just call the police and err on the side of, like Chantilly said, I'd rather be wronged than feel guilty.
Yep.
And so I definitely have done that more times than I wish I had. But I'm thankful for peace of mind, and that I can say, even if they didn't know that I did, that I came to their aid and their rescue. But I definitely, I'm bold. If I feel like I can intervene or stop, and I ain't gonna just jump up in no dude's face that's like, 7'2" and 350 pounds or something. But I definitely intervened plenty times too, and because I just felt like it called for that.
Yeah.
So, because sometimes I think someone does need to see a face with someone that cares, because I know what that has felt like for me. So, but this world is getting crazier, so I don't just rush up on that. And I think I can't rush on the phone.
Yeah, there was one time I was getting my hair done at this girl's house. She was braiding my hair, and this guy I don't even think he was her boyfriend, but he kept calling her, asking what she did the night before. And then she couldn't hardly do my hair because he kept calling her. And finally he came over there, and then he started yelling, raising his voice. They was in the kitchen, I was still in the living room because that's where she was doing my hair. And then I could hear today that he was being physical with her. So I was scared. And I was like, I had my phone in my hand because obviously I was about to call the police. But I just kept walking closer and closer because I don't think that she told him I was there.
Okay.
So I just stood up so he could see me because I was sitting down on the floor when he came in. So I stood up so he could see me, and then he left. So you don't have to always be like, you don't be
No.
Right.
Because you don't want to make the situation worse. But I just let him. Somebody else is here. Somebody else knows what you're doing.
Right.
Yeah, and that's what I was saying earlier. I said a lot of times, especially, I don't want to say especially, but I said in that type of situation, some men, they're fine being Mr. Big Bad in private. They don't want to do that in front of other people.
They don't want that in public, though. They don't want that smoke.
They don't want that to be around. Let somebody else there? No. No. Yep.
And she said after he left, she was like, this is what hurt my feelings so bad. She was like, girl, he choked me when she was finished doing my hair. I was like, why didn't you call the police? Why didn't you let me call the police? Oh, he got warned.
And the police arrested you.
Let's roll this tape back. I think that's the frame with it. Well, I want to thank all of our listeners tonight. It has been very insightful, and I've shared more about my life than I intended to, but I don't ever have a problem talking about me if it helps somebody else. So I personally just want to thank my sisters for joining in. Thank you all for being active bystanders in my life. Now I shared serious things, but I'll say this before we close. There was a time when you two were, and it was when you caught husband number 2 cheating on me, and you found him at the bookstore. Mm-hmm. And again, sometimes it's not about jumping up in nobody's face, because he saw you all and tried to clear his name and his image, but you all had already called me, and it was as simple as, your husband is here, he's with another woman. It's clearly not you.
And he's actively hiding from us.
And you all was like, and we're not leaving here till he leaves.
No.
And he's gonna know we're here.
Cause we was late for church, messing around with him.
and you called our mom. You called Pastor Bernadette, so she knew, which meant the good bishop knew. But that put enough pressure on him. He didn't stay there long. I know that because he called me.
Yeah. And we didn't even know he was there. We just happened to see we were there doing something else and saw him.
And to top it off, our cousin was there. He didn't even. I don't even think he knew I was married at the time. But you all told him, and he was like, "Oh, I'll help." Yeah. So I just, in closing, just say for everybody, just learn to watch and listen. And again, like I said at the top of the show, when it's children, learn to see the cues and signs, the nonverbal cues that they give you, because a lot of times children are talking when they're not talking. But again, I can tell you a lot of times adults are talking when they're not talking to a person. If they were always somewhere, they're never there anymore, then how can I help? And again, it's never wrong to just ask, "Are you okay?" And on that, I'm going to say good night. I'm Leah. She's always slow on the uptake. Say your name, Jake.
Who are you thinking?
The middle one.
And Angelique.
And I'm Angelique.
This was so horrible. Thank you all for letting our family be your family once again, and we will see you all next week.
Bye.